Hi. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be recapping Wereworld Book 2 Rage of Lions, a 2011 book by Jobling Curtis. This book takes place a month and a half after the end of the last book. During that time, Duke Bergen has taken control of Highcliffe and organized a council to run the city on Drew's behalf, while Leopold and his lion guard have been besieged into Highcliffe Castle. The council Bergen created is made up of himself, Count Vega, Hector, and two stag lords Manfred and Mikkel. During a council meeting which Manfred is absent from, Bergen lays out the problems facing them. First, the warlords from many of the surrounding kingdoms have not responded to their requests to support Drew as the new king. Second, a couple people have been able to escape the city, including a lion guard carrying an important message. Third, Leopold's son Lucas has been spotted around the city. Their final problem is that Drew doesn't want to become king, and Bergen believes this is partly because Gretchen is distracting him, so Bergen decides that she should return to her home in Hedgemore, which Hector goes to inform her of. Hector finds Gretchen watching Manfred train Drew in sword fighting. Hector informs all of them that Gretchen is to return to Hedgemore, and Manfred decides to escort her, leaving Drew and Hector to chat. However, just a few minutes after Manfred and Gretchen start walking through the city, they are ambushed by Lucas and Van Kasken, who manages to stab Manfred in the back and knock out Gretchen, but not before she manages to scream, alerting Drew. Although, by the time Drew and Hector get to where Gretchen screams, she is already gone. So Drew then uses his enhanced sense of smell to follow Gretchen's scent. This leads him to a hidden sewer entrance, which Hector reluctantly follows Drew into. Upon entering the sewer, Drew immediately runs into two lion guards called Soren and Brutus, who try to attack him. Drew manages to wound Brutus, after which Soren runs away, but before Drew can chase after Soren, giant rats begin to attack Hector. Drew manages to stop the rats long enough for the city guards to arrive. However, by then the rats have killed Brutus, and any trace of Lucas is gone. A few hours later, the council gathers and learns that Manfred survived, although he is in a coma. Drew requests permission to go after Gretchen, which Bergen denies. So Drew meets up with his friends Hector and Whitley in the morgue so that Hector can raise Brutus's corpse. Hector manages to raise Brutus's corpse, and they learn that Lucas is going south towards his homeland of Bast, but when Drew asks Hector to end the ritual, he realizes Hector has gone into a trance, which Drew has to slap him out of. That night, Drew plans to escape with Whitley but is intercepted by his mother, Queen Amelie. Instead of stopping him, she reminds Drew that Lucas is also her son and that she would appreciate it if he can find a way to deal with him peacefully, but she understands if Drew has to kill Lucas. She also gives Drew a special ring that she had given to Drew's father Wergar previously. Drew then meets up with Hector, who uses his status on the council to get Drew and Whitley out of the city. Because Hector let Drew and Whitley out of the city against Bergen's wishes, the council meets to discuss what should happen to Hector. As they begin questioning Hector, he reveals that he raised Brutus in order to question him. Bergen and Mikkel are horrified, but Vega defends Hector. However, when they realize it's not the first time he's raised the dead, Hector loses his place on the council. After Hector reveals Drew's direction, Bergen's son Brogan is authorized to take a group of soldiers and chase after Drew. As Hector leaves the council, he is greeted by his brother Vincent, who has returned from Redmire having spent all of their money. Vincent then takes up residence in Hector's home, where that night Vincent and his bodyguards warn Hector that if he does not abdicate the throne of Redmire, Vincent will kill him. While at the same time, Hector has also begun to hear and see things in the shadows, a side effect of raising the dead that is constantly disturbing him. Meanwhile, as Drew and Whitley are making camp, they get attacked by a dead lion guard soldier that Van Kasken raised and left on their path. Drew manages to kill the soldier, but not before it manages to bite Whitley with some kind of necrotic bite that begins to poison her. At the same time, Gretchen tries to escape from Lucas. She fails, but manages to kill a guard in the process. A few days later, Hector figures out that he is being haunted by past spirits of the dead called vials, which Vincent overhears, and threatens to make public if Hector does not renounce the throne within the week. Meanwhile, in order to fix Whitley's wound, Drew and Whitley have made a detour to the city of Haggard, run by a ramlord called Ewan, known for his healing. However, as they enter the city of Haggard, the city watch knock Drew out and take Whitley away. Drew awakes in a cell with Baron Ewan, who informs him that his city has been usurped by a wargoat called Count Kessler, who plans on sailing to Bast and selling all the prisoners into slavery. After learning that Whitley is a bear, Lord Kessler has Ewan heal her, which Ewan does while informing her of the situation. So Whitley pretends to be totally unconscious until that night when all the guards fall asleep. She steals the keys and frees the prisoners. Then Drew rallies the prisoners to try and kill the sleeping guards. The prisoners manage to kill a few, but as the rest of the guards wake up, the prisoners begin to get slaughtered. However, as they are losing, Brogan and his soldiers show up and manage to rescue Drew and Whitley, but Kessler manages to escape with some prisoners on his ship. Meanwhile, each night Vincent along with his two bodyguards have been tormenting Hector until one night Hector grabs a dagger and tries to defend himself. Vincent laughs at Hector's attempt but trips on a rug and falls right onto the dagger, killing him, only for Count Vega to walk in and see Vincent dead on a knife Hector is holding as the two bodyguards run away. After Brogan rescues Drew and Whitley, they decide to continue on to Cape Gala with Baron Ewan in order to catch Lucas and Gretchen. Upon arriving in Cape Gala, Brogan and Ewan reveal their identities, but Whitley and Drew stay with the soldiers. As soon as they enter the city, Brogan and Ewan go to meet with the horse lords, while the soldiers along with Whitley and Drew are led into an ambush set up by Soren and Lucas's lion guard. Drew and Whitley both manage to survive, but they are separated, although they learn that Lucas is not escaping to Bast, but rather welcoming somebody who is arriving from Bast. Whitley ends up being sheltered by a traveling group called the Ramari that worship the werewolves, and want to help Whitley meet back up with Drew. At the same time, when Brogan meets with the horse lords, they capture him, and Lucas reveals they made a deal to host the cat lords arriving from Bast in return for their independence. However, when the first cat lord arrives, a woman called Opal, she kills the horse lord that suggests independence, and then she has Lucas kill Brogan, announcing that anyone who didn't support Leopold has betrayed the cat lords and should be killed. Meanwhile, Vega helps Hector by taking care of Vincent's body. However, Vincent's spirit now haunts Hector, constantly taunting him. Hector then goes to find Vincent's bodyguards, which he intimidates into joining him by using Vincent's spirit to choke them. Back in Cape Gala, the cat lords leave Van Casken to run the city while they take Lucas and their fleet up to Highcliffe. Van Casken immediately uses his power to acquire the bodies of the dead warlords, Brogan and the horse lord, in order to perform some ritual, while Drew sneaks into the main castle and meets up with Ewan, but Ewan betrays him and gives Drew to Van Casken. At the same time, Whitley and the Ramari get into the castle under the guise of a traveling circus, which they use to poison the drinks of the guards and begin to fight their way through the castle, freeing Gretchen in the process. As the attack begins, Van Casken chains Drew to the wall by his left hand, and reveals that he has been reviving warlords as zombies, and that he intends to kill Drew and have him lead the zombie army. However, as Van Casken gets within Drew's range, he is momentarily distracted by the sounds of the attack, and Drew uses this to wrap his chain around Van Casken's neck and kill him. Unfortunately, killing Van Casken does not stop the zombies, so Drew has to bite off his left hand in order to escape from the zombies. After escaping, Drew begins to pass out, and he is picked up by a giant winged creature that carries him away. Only for Drew to wake up as a prisoner on Kessler's ship. Meanwhile, in Highcliffe, the cat lord's fleet arrives at the same time as the dog lords from Omir both begin attacking Highcliffe. Mikkel is outside the city when the dog lords arrive and is killed, but Manfred and Bergen manage to kill one of the attacking dog lords before they realize the battle is hopeless, and they instead pardon a criminal named Carver who offers them a way to evacuate the city. Carver leads the survivors to a cemetery which has a path to the catacombs, but in order to stop the armies from just following them, Bergen stays behind to close the pathway, which kills him. While Vega, Manfred, Hector, and Queen Amelie all leave on Vega's ship, the Maelstrom, headed towards Shadow Haven. After the cat lord sees Highcliffe, the head of the cat lords, a panther lord named Onyx, berates Leopold for failing to keep hold of his kingdom and then has Lucas kill Leopold. After which the cat lords return to Cape Gala to find the remains of the battle with Whitley and the horse lords having fled. There Onyx finds Drew's sword and paw, and decides that Drew must be killed, at which point the messenger from the beginning returns, taking Drew's sword and asking to kill Drew, revealing that he is Trent Ferran, Drew's adopted brother.